but the world is watching with their ears.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Paratopia.
Wow, really?
Is there a better way to start than with that
I don't
voice?
know. I guess that's as good as any.
There's nothing. Two quick sort of, I don't know if they're disclaimers. Well, maybe one's just a warning. For the next month, I am not in my apartment. I am in another apartment with friends, and so you not in this episode per se, or at least not in the first half, you won't hear a whole bunch of noise. But in future episodes, say, for instance, the next 3 or 4, you may hear people and refrigerators and stuff, and I'll try to edit that stuff out as much as possible. But if you hear it, it ain't ghosts. It's not EVP, it's just people in the house. And then the other thing is, we taped a whole show with Lee Townsend, but then we received information that made the first half of that episode moot.
Right.
So Lee will join us for the second half of the show. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about, for those of you who know, the Phil Imbrogno, I'm calling it a pseudo-scandal. Well, let's call it a scandal. The Phil Imbrogno scandal. Jeff, would you like to explain this, or shall I?
The uproar.
The uproar, yes.
Let's call it an uproar.
All right.
I mean, I think it's a pretty easy thing to explain. Essentially, there is a skeptic who has a blog, and he is kind of, I don't know, can we say he's leaked it out in some way, or it's been I
think what actually happened is he was telling people on another show about it, and they leaked it out after they had kicked him off of their message board.
Oh, so at any rate, kind of a leak, I suppose, that someone had contacted, this someone being, again, said skeptic, MIT, and found that Phil's credentials are not as he says they were, which is which it smacked me a little disappointed. And then apparently, if I understand things right, at the present time, which is Thursday night at midnight, there's also been a couple other people who have contacted, am I right in saying Texas, Jeremy?
Yeah.
A university in Texas, and they can't find anything there either, which was another one of his alma maters. So, essentially, what's being said is he lied about his credentials. He's lied about his educational background, his degrees, didn't go to MIT, doesn't have a degree, isn't a doctor, isn't a PhD, that sort of thing.
And it doesn't help that Phil has been completely silent on the issue and decided to drop out of the paranormal altogether.
Right, which you may have seen on the Vengeful Jinn website. Rosemary Ellen Guiley has posted something under Phil's bio that says he's kind of extracted himself from the paranormal investigation, and end of story. So that was all very abrupt, like out of nowhere. And then, of course, all of this starts to come out that that the credentials aren't lining up. So that's it at current time. However, it's not having Phil here to make some kind of statement. I don't know. See, I haven't made the call, so I don't know what kind of value I can place on someone who is trying to out him for not having the degrees, not exactly knowing what their motives are precisely. I don't know how solid that is. So I guess it bears upon the person saying that. I don't know. I mean, not having Phil here to say something is probably the most aggravating point of all of it.
Well, I'm going to say this.
Okay.
Which is that Phil wrote to me. I had written to him, I don't know, maybe a week ago or so.
Right, we both did, yeah.
Just saying, if you need anything, sorry you're going through this, thinking it's all a bunch of crap. and he didn't respond, and then he responded really this morning, after we had recorded last night, and told me his side of the story, part of which I remember, it jives with my memory of what he had told me when we were out on a Culture of Contact trip.
Okay.
And part of it also is, the rest of it really, is just a retelling of what he had told me originally before this sort of broke big, and he was just having a little war with this internet blogger. Unfortunately, I'm not able to say much more than that because,
right.
It'll come out when he's ready for it to come out. His side of it. Now, I will say that no matter what ends up being true, I think he did screw up in a way, but not in a way that, if it turns out that he's telling the truth, not in a way that is any big deal. You know what I mean? Like, this ain't... I'm just saying there are other ways to look at this other than what everybody is saying, and so just wait for the other side. That's all. And that's all I've ever said about this, is just wait and see what he has to say. He has good reason for not saying anything at the moment. And he, I think, has a very, at least as good as the people saying he's lying, a good position, and we'll see what's what. And I'm sorry to be vague about that. I'm just saying...
Well, let me just stop you.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying is not a good thing to be saying. And I'll tell you why. Because what you're going to get is going to be, well, you didn't listen for Hopkins or Jacob's side, did you? That's what's going to come back at you.
No. Well, here's the thing. I'll address that. How about I address that?
Okay.
Because people on the forum, one person on the forum said, well, I guess it pays to be a friend of the show or something like that. You treat friends of the show differently than, say, Peniston or Jacobs. And the fact is, Phil is not a friend of the show. Phil is a friend of mine personally. Not a great friend. We don't hang out and stuff, but he certainly did bring me and a group of strangers twice out to, the monuments in upstate New York. Mm-hmm. He certainly did come and speak at Culture of Contact for free. We've chatted on the phone a bit. Sure, he's been on the show. I'm friendly with Phil. I've talked to him personally, and we've talked about this sort of, his background very nonchalantly. So it would surprise me if he were lying. But the notion that we would have friends of the show that we would stick up for through thick and thin, even if we thought they were full of shit, is to have that notion of what a friend of the show is completely backwards. We're snobs. We befriend on behalf of the show only people we find credible,
Yeah.
So
it be that way, but that's the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't work any other way. But then I think the other notion in that is just what you're saying, Jeff, which is, well, you didn't give Jacobs and Hopkins a chance, or, Peniston. Well, the difference is that's not true as far as Jacobs is concerned, and Hopkins, we gave them every opportunity to come on the show. Mm-hmm. Before we even did the show, we gave Jacobs every opportunity. And I didn't have anything against Jacobs, I didn't have anything against Hopkins. In fact, Hopkins came and spoke at one of my events. Right.
And I should say that I do remember that Dr. Jacobs gave us a letter, beforehand, explaining his side, but we couldn't talk about it at the time, but that was later, the letter that was posted on his website.
Yeah, so, I didn't find
it explains the same thing.
It wasn't a satisfying explanation.
Right.
What Phil has told me about him, to me, is a satisfying explanation, at least satisfying enough to say, there are two sides of the story, and let's wait to hear what that other side is. So if I've developed any street cred on this show, I guess I'm pulling it out and using it right now, because that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything beyond there are two sides to this. Let's wait and hear from him. And there's good reason why he hasn't spoken up. So let's see what happens.
Can I ask this? Can I say, is the Hangman's noose a bit premature?
The Hangman news is very premature.
Thank you.
It's premature whether he is guilty as charged or not, because people just automatically just patted themselves on the back and are calling this guy dead and in the water as far as his career and all this stuff. And it's like, you know what? You don't know anything. In fact, I find it amazing that people are going with a debunker who they've never heard of. like this is the guy they're 100% saying, yeah, we trust everything he's saying, and we trust that he knows what he's doing. Because there are two issues. One is the debunker guy, Lance Moody, presenting everything correctly, and then to the best of his knowledge. And then the other is he misconstruing what he's finding out by accident? Mm-hmm. So, and there are issues beyond that, but let's just leave it at those. So there's that. There's all of that. And as far as Peniston is concerned, again, that's another thing of, like, just looking at the evidence, it doesn't add up.
Well, yeah, I'm not even worried about that. That seems an obvious thing to me. That doesn't seem like the kind of thing that
let me
has
put it
to
to you
be
this way.
delivered.
If Phil Imbrogno had emailed me and it sounded like bullshit, I would be on here right now telling you it's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's it. And if you don't believe that about me, then you're probably not really a listener of the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, just peripherally, what I find really amazing about this whole situation is that, not to mention any names, and I don't want to do that, but, since this news has broken, there's been a certain individual who kind of dumped on his show and left for God knows what reasons, but this conflictor has decided now that he's going to be the guy to spread this far and wide right out of the gate, because there's conflict involved and there's someone to be easily stomped. And so I just might point out, and most people will know who I'm speaking of, he's immediately there with the boot whenever there's some kind of conflict. Otherwise, you never hear from this guy. But now that this has come up, all of a sudden, here's the big boot coming down again, so he's right in the thick of it. So
well,
just want to point that out,
Yeah, and where was he, and where were all of these people coming down on Phil when we were dealing with Hopkins and Jacobs and the issue of hypnosis?
Hypnosis and all that, right.
So if you want to talk about friend of the show or just friend personally and sticking up for friends, I mean, there it is,
Yeah.
It's ridiculous to me. The whole thing is sad, and the timing couldn't be worse for Phil in a lot of ways, and I hope he is able to speak about this sooner than later.
That would be good. Yeah. I mean, it'd be good to have some kind of definitive answer one way or the other. I mean, for my money, if this is true in any sense, to me, it's somewhat disappointing, even if it's an understandable error. I think, unfortunately, so much has been said at this point. And you know how the court of public opinion is. It's very hard to correct it and spin it back around.
Well, this is difficult too.
I think damage is done at this point. I mean, unfortunately, guilty or innocent or halfway in between isn't really going to do much at this point unless he comes forward and says exactly what the issue is and how everything has gone down henceforth with all this. So,
right.
I don't know.
I mean, the problem is that, like Lance Moody and whoever else, they got a paper from MIT saying, he never took classes here. We don't know anyone named Phil, Philip, whoever.
Okay.
And so people are going, well, see, it's not just that these people don't know what they're doing. They actually have confirmation here from MIT. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, guys, let's, again, I'm not allowed to talk about this really, but let's think outside the box. There are other reasons that might happen. So just use your imagination,
Yeah.
And Phil will address it. Now, could Phil still be lying? I guess I have to throw that caveat out there that he could address it and really be lying. But none of my spider senses are going that way. Because like I said, we've talked about stuff like this and this months ago and even weeks ago. And it just, nothing about his demeanor smacks of lying to me.
Okay.
And
well, I mean, let me just put this out there that what I find, I mean, my mom worked for the school board for years, and I was asking her about this. And Phil is a teacher, correct?
Yes.
And so when you are a teacher and you go to a school, you must hand in your credentials to be examined and checked upon before you become a teacher. And I think it was in Maryland or it could have been all over the United States. But I think at a certain point, there was a little bit of an uproar in the educational system because people were coming in claiming to be teachers and giving their credentials, and many of them turned out not to be true. And so they began really stringently checking those. And so if Phil is a teacher, how would they not check it and find out that he didn't go where he said he went?
Well, and do a criminal background check. I saw somebody say that online, too. If you're a teacher, you get a criminal background check.
Yeah. I mean, it's not easy these days. I mean, it's so I wonder about that portion of it. And frankly, the answer may be that perhaps the universities that he's mentioned he didn't attend, but he did attend another one to get his degree to go into teaching. Who knows? I don't know, so I'm just guessing. But either way you cut it, he's an educated man, or he wouldn't be a teacher. That's the way I look at it. So I guess we're in that wait and see mode, and waiting for Phil.
And it might be a while, but so what? We'll go on with life, and then we'll come back to this.
Right.
When news breaks, we'll come back to this. How about that? Until then, I would just urge people, because I'm seeing online people saying, well, we should tell the school where he's a teacher about this. Doesn't everyone want to know? It's like they're all basing it on the assumption that he's lying. I mean, I just wrote a little sort of jokey thing on Facebook that ufology needs a jump to conclusions mat from Office Space. And it's like, you could take that either way at this point. That's about UFOs, or that's about now, apparently, how we just handle what we believe about investigators. It's like, this isn't 1 + 1 = 2. And it is a little deceiving because it does kind of look like 1 + 1 = 2. But there are just some other options out there. Let's just throw that out there.
Yeah.
And sorry to be vague about all this, but I'm trying to, walk a fine line here.
Well, you're honoring the wishes of the man, so there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and again, if those wishes didn't make sense, I probably wouldn't honor them.
Right. Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. So speaking of walking a fine line.
Go on. Segue us out of this, Jeff. Do it.
The segue a fine line in ufology. Everybody familiar with All News Web out there? That website?
They can't answer you right now?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Just a show of hands. Well, okay, there's 1, 2, okay, 10. Run by a guy named Michael Cohen. And if you take a gander over there, and I'm certainly not advocating it, allow me to just say that everything that I've seen on there, some of it's been moderately interesting, and a lot of it's been just crap as far as I'm concerned, as far as the content of what's presented there about ufology. It is a UFO outlet of news and such like that. So I saw a film that this gent had put up called UFO Filmed Above Norway During Daytime, Clear Proof. And this is a UFO, clearly someone running with a camera. He tilts the camera up. He's clearly on a hill overlooking a city or a little town, adjacent water to the left of the shooter. And he follows this object as it passes over the town and out over the water. And I'm watching this. I'm like, okay, it's interesting. Is it CG? I don't know. I can't tell really from unless it's real blatantly obvious online videos. It's tough to tell. It is daylight footage. It's not a light. It's an object, but it's white, and it's not horribly dissimilar from the videos that we just saw come out of the UK, where we had all of these small object kind of shooting across the sky, which turned out to be nonsense. Again, another CGI camera matched fake. Is this the same thing? I don't know. But what I can tell you is when it crosses out over the water, there's no reflection of it in the water. Interesting. So I happened to cross Facebook where I saw this posted again, and I don't know. Most of the comments on there of people are, cool and thanks and, very interesting and real good footage, bro, and all that kind of backslapping. And I noticed that in the commentary that Mr. Cohen puts in the video, he said that this is essentially, he's had experts look at this, and it's not CG. It's not hoaxed. And so I posted in the comment section, I said, really, what experts has this been submitted to? Let's see that list. Because I'm curious, who's verified this thing. And we have a man named Larry. I can't pronounce his last name, but he says, what experts? Experts are disinformation people. Let ordinary man be the so-called expert. It's in your face. Just film it. Let the everyday man be the judge. Okay. So I saw that. I said, unfortunately, Larry, ordinary guy doesn't know imaging and therefore can't really make an accurate determination of what he's looking at in the video. What's actually seen with the eye doesn't always bear resemblance to the video image. And experts being disinformation people is a little over the top. Most people worth their salt in any chosen profession just don't always feed the hype machine and aren't interested in supporting a belief system. You'll often get the real answer with people who know their discipline and apply it to this field of study, though it might not always be the answer that you want. And his answer to that was, yes, I know all that. Just wing it anyways. Do I hear laughter at all with that? I mean, are we there yet? Are we there yet with what's wrong with people? So Mr. Cohen replied to me after that. And he says, Jeff, the whole notion of UFO experts, as you put it, which I didn't put it. I didn't say that. UFO experts, as you put it, is seriously a bit mentally imbalanced, like there is some select elite who are qualified in this topic. Every person on this planet has the same right as any other to offer their opinion on the topic, and all are just as valid, like Bruce Maccabee has a PhD in alien studies. So, I mean, this is the kind of thing you get when you try to interact. All I'm asking is what experts looked at the video. This has all come from that singular question. And so I replied. I said, Michael, kindly don't insinuate that I'm imbalanced when you, sir, are the one that said experts have verified the video was not CGI based. I'm asking who those experts are. I said nothing about UFO experts, nor is there such a thing. As far as who's qualified to render judgment on an image, if you think Joe Blow on the street offers as much educated information on data analysis as someone who's been doing it for professionally for decades, such as Maccabee, Sanyo, or hell, even me for that matter, then you're being a bit naive. And I, in a secondary post there, I said, by the way, I'm assuming that you have a direct dub of this footage or raw data, perhaps the original recording. Surely you're not basing any conclusions off of online video, right? To which Mr. Larry then interjects again. Ritzman, discern with your heart, mind, and soul. Right now, you're out of the caliber. What you see in this footage is original. That's simple. You're a disinformation person from the government. You should be ashamed of yourself. I forgive you. Lay off. Mean that. So, Jared, what?
I think what you have encountered here, Jeff, is the common douchius bagatus, otherwise known as the douchebag.
I mean, what am I doing? I mean, what's going on?
Yeah.
And so, my only reply to that is, so I take it anyone who wants to critically examine any info that's presented is a government agent? Well, nothing new there. Sorry to inform you, Larry, I'm not a government agent. However, I discern footage through critical examination. I'm not ashamed of that, and I never lay off, but thanks for the sermon. And then, he's spouted off a couple more times since then, but, it says you can be critical, but progress rules. Be your imagination and progress the world, not regress it. To which I gave him a smart-ass answer saying, yeah, I remember my first beer, too. Can I get an answer from Michael as to what experts he referred to in that video that have evaluated? Thank you. But, there you go.
Well, see, there's a fine example of New Age nonsense. Because a lot of people ask, gee, what's the difference between the real thing and New Age nonsense? Well, that would be New Age nonsense, what he just said there. Because it's completely nonsensical. It's just words that sound like they go together and mean something deeper. And really, what he's saying there is, I'm an idiot and a douchebag.
Well, here's the thing. This is where a lot of this stuff comes from. Is the online video that gets picked up or is submitted to somebody online as an online piece of footage. We really don't know what we're looking at because it's online footage. As much as the internet has done to connect people, we've said this before, that it's really done a number in ufology because not only has technology given way to more sophisticated hoaxes, but I mean, I only need to point out that a previously known Uber expert was thrown over by the Dome of the Rock footage. I mean, that was our last big hubbub, of which it wasn't worth a shit from the start. This is how this sort of thing gets started.
Oh, wait, isn't this the same fella who has come charging in, both barrels shooting? On Phil Imbroglio? Isn't that who you're talking
I suppose
about?
so, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's the bottom line is that a piece of footage. I mean, this is how the drone thing got started. You've got these bunch of pictures put up by some anonymous source, and as I understand, there was talk of this drone thing at Whitley's conference here, a week ago or so, and that's been picked up again. I heard on Dreamland this week that there's new information about the drones, and I mean, for Christ's sake, I mean, that's one of the more obvious ones to me, just from looking at one single photograph of the object, this drone object. In one shot, it's clear, it's right in front of the guy, and it, scale-wise, you really can't tell. But then when you can tell scale, you've got this thing being eclipsed by some trees that are, quite frankly, big. And this thing is clearly not going behind them. But it is going behind them because they've been photoshopped over top where it's been erased, however it's been composited in there. I mean, this thing was crap from the get-go. And now again, it's being brought up as a real object. And I heard Linda Moulton Howe on Dreamland saying, before the Photoshop CGI attacks began, I mean, it's not attacking footage to go, yeah, that's CG. That's a composite. It's very easy to see. I don't know what to tell you. It's just not. It's not this story. And instead, when I wrote her and a couple other people wrote and said this is not any good, she chose to kind of ignore that and has taken it off into mythic proportions at this point in time. So. But that's how this kind of crap gets started, is a guy puts it up and touts it as an amazing piece of footage, and then the next thing you know, it hits ATS, and the people there, quite frankly, make mincemeat of it. If it's fake, they'll find out. But unfortunately, it still propagates in every other direction. Just because one of the bigger outlets puts it to bed doesn't mean everyone on that board puts it to bed. So it just propagates and keeps going. And after a while, it becomes something that everybody just thinks is a legit story. I mean, just it's really, really unfortunate that people with a high caliber website, and I won't even say All News Web is a high caliber website, but it certainly gets a lot of views, I would think, aren't a little bit more critical and don't seem to. I don't know. I don't know if I can say they don't seem to care, but
they don't care.
Well, they don't want to answer the question. I mean, who looked at it? I mean, I'm just asking who looked at it. And
well, I mean, is this any better than the Examiner? This alt news?
No, not particularly.
I mean, nobody is vetted. This is, nobody is an expert. It's really your friend's wish there, the douchebag you're talking to. It's like nobody is vetted because nobody is considered having more of an expertise in anything than anyone else. Right. So you can have a monkey or a guy who thinks he's a vampire or Michael Sala on there.
Right.
Or you could have William Shakespeare on there. They don't care as long as people are clicking on it and they're getting their advertising revenue. What do they care?
Yeah. So I guess it's just nothing's really changing. I mean, people are still grabbing onto the sensationalistic stuff and really don't have any clue where it's coming from or who's vetted it, or it's the same old story, I guess, in that direction. But and anybody, of course, who questions that, you're an agent of the government trying to suppress the truth. God, it all becomes such a fucking cartoon after a while. So,
well, let's just hope those guys are the minority of people reading that thread.
You wish.
Indeed. All right. Well then, Jeff, why don't you and I take a little break here, and when we come back, we'll be the you and me plus Lee from yesterday. It's like we won't even be here today.
Okay, great.
We'll have time traveled back to yesterday, and hopefully I'll be able to edit this into something listenable, because if I remember correctly, we had a lot of technical difficulties during the second half of the show. So, to reiterate, we taped an entire show. The first half we couldn't use anymore, and the second half is riddled with problems.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah, well, I'm welcome. I will somehow navigate this minefield and give to you a fantastic second portion of the show. Or, barring that, something completely incoherent, the likes of which you've heard from me before.
You've been listening to Jeremy's bumbling excuses. Back after this.
If you record audio for any purpose, chances are you want it to be heard. You want to attract the largest audience possible who can hear your message. That's where we come in. We're cyberears.com, a revolutionary internet service that will host your audio files and help you promote and track its popularity. Considering hosting a podcast to the world? We have all the automated tools to make the process as simple and easy as it can be. No technical mumbo-jumbo to work out. Cyberears.com does all the work for you. You record it, we take care of the rest. So don't delay. Go to cyberears.com today and register for a free trial account. Upload your audio files and get heard. With cyberears.com, it's your audio on your terms.
Another funny thing happened on the way to the forum, which Jeff thought we should maybe do a show about, which is, I guess what? Some aspects of the way that I talk about my book, or the way that I write about it online, sounds absolutist and authoritarian, and or at best schoolmarm. And
Right.
And it rubs certain people the wrong way, and so why do I talk that way when I talk about everything else is I don't know and relativity and blah, blah, blah?
Well, let's have it.
'Cause?
Okay.
Cause.
Next topic.
Cause.
No, but if you're talking about everything and nothing, then what else is there?
Yeah, well, I
you
think...
can be an authority on that. You can speak authoritatively on that.
Sure. No, but I think there is this thing where when people talk about this spiritual stuff, they want it all to be self-empowerment, self-improvement, whatever you think. This is just another path that you to add on to the list of shit you've already read. And it's like, but no, actually what I'm saying is, no, that's been the problem
Right.
for all these many years. But I don't think, I don't know, I think that's a hard message to swallow even when you're reading it or hearing it. Because the temptation is to go, oh yeah, okay, cool, I get that. Now that's just another path to add on to the heap of stuff. And it's like, and then I have to repeat myself and be like, no, no, it's not actually.
Well, as simple as a concept it is, it's extremely difficult to articulate in a character-limited chat text or in an elevator talk. It's hard to sell the concept in 50 words or less.
Well, that's the
Even
thing,
though
which
it's
is why
a
I
really
ended up writing
simple
a book.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing is, and if you come to the forum and you say, well, I've read your book, then I assume we're on the same page, and so nothing that's going to come out of my typewriter here is going to surprise you, But I can't, I don't know. It's an odd thing to me that like, people talk about things they've heard, like about Kundalini, for instance. Well, I've read that Kundalini is really dangerous, or, I have a belief in what happens in the afterlife, and it doesn't jive with this, or whatever. It's like, well, but these are beliefs, these are things you've read, they're not your actual experience of it. What I'm giving you is my actual experience of it, and part of that actual experience, and I think this is the part that's sort of hard to describe, or hard to say with a straight face maybe, is that part of the sort of cleansing process in this is epiphanies, and is which essentially become intellectual, right? So you have this, I don't want to say pouring of information, but you sort of wake up into a fuller understanding of how things actually work. And so to iterate them is to then be the jackass who's telling you what to do. But it's like, but then don't ask me. You know what I mean? Like I think the problem is that I used to, on the message board, just talk about this stuff, figuring everyone would be interested or everyone was interested or whatever. And it was challenging to people. And so Jeff and I sort of had the discussion of, well, maybe I should lay off. And I did lay off, but now people are asking me about it. So I feel like, okay, now I'm responding to people. I'm not forcing something on them that some conversation they shouldn't be expecting. I'm actually just answering questions.
Right.
But the way that you answer those questions is in conflict with what you want to hear. And so inevitably, it ends up being a mirror. I mean, I honestly think that any conversation about this stuff you end up looking at yourself in the mirror. And if you don't like what you see, then you get mad at me.
The mirror of their expectations.
Yeah, the mirror of what they want to hear. What they want to hear is this, and what I'm telling you is this. And if you don't like what I'm telling you, then who am I to tell it to you? Well, I'm the guy you asked.
Right. And they're expecting, their expectation is to promote you to a level of demagoguery or guruship, something like that.
Which they shouldn't if they actually read the book, right?
Exactly.
And it's not like I'm saying, go read my book. I'm saying, you just told me you read my book. Mm-hmm. Or in the case of someone else said, I own your book, but I haven't read it. And it's like, well, I'm glad to have these discussions, but I don't want to go 5 pages hunched over a keyboard, saying the same thing over and over again in different words, trying to get through to you when that's not even the conversation you want to have, and you're not being upfront with me about that until you're angry about it.
Well, I read War and Peace when I was 6 years old, but I didn't get it. Just because they read it doesn't mean they get it. And, of course, we all bring our own bias even into reading. And, I think you put your position out pretty succinctly in as far as what I understand thus far. And I don't know. I understand maybe.
Here's the other thing, and this is something I said to Jeff more than on the forum, but I think it makes sense, which is if everyone's crawling and suddenly there's a guy walking, you don't say to the guy walking, hey, how are you walking? And then when he tells you, you just stand up and put one foot in front of the other. You don't argue with that guy and go, no, I don't think that's possible. First of all, crawling doesn't involve feet. It involves your knees and your hands.
Right.
So how could you possibly stand and walk? Yeah.
Right.
I've read, furthermore, that it's impossible. And it's like, well, but that's how you walk. So do it or don't. And then it's like, well, why are you such an absolutist? Why can't we?
Right. Well,
it's like, because that's what walking is. You stand up and and don't ask me if you don't want to know, and it's like, that's the thing. But of course, this isn't a simple case as that analogy, because I'm not doing anything physically that you can see where it's like, well, you just sort of have to take my word for it, right? Uh-huh. But here's the catch. If you don't take my word for it, if you think I'm delusional or I'm lying or whatever, then you wouldn't be talking. I would think you wouldn't be talking to me. I mean, I don't engage those people on boards. It's like you can smell them a mile away, the inauthenticity, however it comes about, with the exception of Phil Imbroglios degrees. And so I don't engage, except that. So I try not to engage those people, and I would think that that you wouldn't waste your time engaging me if you just thought I was crazy or lying to you. So you must sense that I'm onto something, or else you wouldn't be asking me what I'm onto.
And these are people that are just seeking clarification that may not understand certain portions of this non-philosophy.
Well, now let's bubble out one more, because here's the real rub. The real rub is I'm not angry about this because I completely understand where it comes from. Where this comes from is to understand what the hell I'm babbling about is essentially antithetical to everything that we are, right? Because I'm saying you've got to die, right? You've got to sort of dissolve completely in order to transcend. You're transcending. It's not you leaving the state that you're in now to transcend somewhere. It's you dissolving, and the transcendental thing happens.
With all due respect, the Bible also says that too. But
well, yeah, I've been trying to point this out.
Yeah,
I'm certainly not the first in by my watch, many thousands of years.
Right.
But in any event, so it is antithetical to what people want to hear, and yet it's the truth. And so I think the conflict is that to keep yourself from the truth that is the case of you, whether you are conscious of it or not, you're going to keep arguing the point and arguing the point and arguing the point. And that's what happens. And I know I did that, I didn't just wake up one day and voila. I mean,
I really liked your analogy in the book about the movie. I forget which movie it was, about the breathing underwater.
The Abyss.
In the Abyss. That's right. Everything in our mind tells us not to breathe this liquid because we're going to drown. However, it's hyperoxygenated, special flora with some kind of chemical that gives us better oxygen, better oxygenates our bodies than air does.
Right.
We refuse to accept that.
I wish there were a way to make it. I mean, I don't know how much simpler I can say it, except that you have perspective A and perspective B, and I think that actually Dr. Andrews, if she is a doctor,
That's uncalled for.
Isn't everyone in question now? I don't know.
Right.
If that is her real name. Said last week on the show, which is, I had said something to the effect of, is what you're saying about working with energy in conflict with the pathless path, I mean, are we talking about something that we all are, this energy, or are we talking about something that we can use to our benefit? So essentially, are we that? Are we oneness? Or are we in relationship to that? Are we individuals using energy? And she said, it's not in conflict with. She said, we are that, whether we're aware of it or not. And she said, I'm certainly not, meaning herself. She said, I certainly haven't had that experience of, the waking up to oneness. But even if I'm unconsciously that, I still know, I'm still that. Well, this is sort of saying the same thing, which is basically what she's saying is in the realm of relativity and of separateness and of individuals working in relationship with each other and with their environment. Yes, you climb up this spiritual ladder. There are rungs, and you can play around on each of these levels. You can become a magician, you can become an energy worker, or you can sit in your easy chair and watch TV. All of that encompasses this one aspect of us, living in relationship with.
Right.
To transcend that to the oneness means to kill that self and become the oneness. And that's the thing I think is hard to wrap your head around. You have to actually... all of the rules that work in that land of relativity don't work in the absolute. And there is an absolute. And unfortunately, and there are many... the thing that is the relative is what appeals to you. Which voice do you hear? Is it me? Is it Peter Kingsley? Is it whoever? Krishnamurti? Is it the Bible? Whatever. Is it your own? Do you just wake up one day? I mean, what is it that wakes you up to that? But the waking up part is the part that is the thing that is the eternal thing. Oh, the death. The death has to happen. The death has to happen by definition. There's just no getting around that. And then I think once you go through that, and then this kundalini or whatever you want to call it, this second tier of you appears. There's no question of whether is it going to harm you? Is it not? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's going to do whatever needs to happen in direct proportion to how you have screwed up your own body to heal you, to get you ready for the big enchilada, which is the oneness thing. And so is there pain involved? Sure. Of course there's going to be discomfort and all sorts of... But so what? I guess that's my answer. Is what? Why is that a problem? Because you want everything to be flowery and whatever? I don't know.
Well, you had to know that not everybody was going to get that. Not all of your readers are going to get that.
Yes, but I do get that. But what I want them to get is why they're not getting that. Because that's the part that I think really annoys the hell out of people is when I not only say, yeah, no, you're not getting it, but I know why you're not getting it and you don't. Because then that sets up this authority thing, which is not what I mean to do. It's just simply, because really what I'm trying to say is, really stop asking me about this stuff and look at what is already written here, because it's all right there. If you just do the work on your own, if you just ponder this stuff on your own now, because here it is. This whole conversation, I had this conversation with this woman on the forum, and I think she got a little bit offended at at the tone, and I think we sort of worked it out at the end, but at the beginning, she was really offended at my tone. And it's like, no. But to me, in my head, I'm going, oh, this is great, because here is an example of someone I can have this conversation with, and then you can look back on the entire conversation and go, I get it. I get what's being said here. To me, that conversation was a gift, but for her, it was like, oh, I didn't, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
But I do.
I'm glad you reconciled it with her.
But I'm not, in a way. I am, because I don't want anyone to be offended or whatever. But it's like, I really wish people would go deeper than that and ask themselves, why am I offended? Because to me, all of this question is about you. Like, you've got to ask yourself this stuff. Like, not just, how is it that this guy's offending me by words on a screen? Like, why is this offensive to me? Is it that he's telling me what to do? Is it that these words actually ring true? Is it that I don't understand it and I feel like he's being condescending in some way? What is it that's actually offensive? Because in my head, the answer is always going to be, it's offensive to you because you don't want to hear it, because it's antithetical to what you want the world to be.
Yeah.
What's that?
Right.
Hello?
You broke up.
We're getting garbled.
Oh.
Jumbled.
Are you still getting jumbled? And here Paratopia begins, a grand adventure of the Ghost in the Machine, where every time we try to get this information out, something goes kablooey with the system. And ordinarily I would just edit around that, but I kind of want you to hear just how often this happens, for the simple fact that the next day when Jeff and I do the after chat, we end it on the weirdest electronic note I've ever encountered. Is there a ghost in the machine? What's going on? Is there something happening here? I wonder. Or is it simply that when I get passionate and riled up, I project onto the computer and it affects the electronics? And the only reason I would say something that silly is hearkening back to when we did the ghost hunt at Mark Nesbitt's place, and I had the theremin out in front of me, and I triggered the meditation energy, and Jeff says, according to the video, that when I exhale after doing a series of exercises or movements or whatever, that's when the theremin goes off, because I thought maybe something came into the room and set the theremin off, but he says he thinks it's me. So I wonder if that's true. Is that what's going on here? I don't know. Or, maybe we're not supposed to talk about this stuff. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. I did write the book, right? Anyway, enjoy the cluster frack. That's right. I just went PG-13. Time back in. Where'd you lose me?
Right after it goes like this.
We didn't miss anything.
No, we got it.
Much.
We got it.
It's all the same shit anyway.
It's all there. We got it. So what you're saying is, Jeremy, is you're a dick.
Yes. No, I'm saying that there's no other way to speak about this that I know of. There's no other way except to say, look, we're talking about absolutes, so I have to talk in absolutes, and that's offensive to a lot of people, and I completely understand that, because you've had however many thousands of years of religion talking in absolutes about bullshit and control issues and dictatorship and all of that. And so it's the same sort of language, but it's been bastardized by them. Yes. The language is just an explanation of what is. How can you even say there is a what is without the implication being that there's an absolute there, But that's just, it's the necessary evil, and it ain't my fault that, the Pope screwed it up for everybody. What do you want from me?
Our Lady of Perpetual Motion.
Right. Yeah. I didn't quite understand it until you explained it, which, I don't know. I read the thread, and I could see her point. It wasn't, it was just, I looked at it and I thought, well, yeah, it is kind of absolutish. And my point was, it's your experience, and how does that then apply to everyone? You had said to me one time that it was universal, but my question is, I had asked you on the show one time, have you ever heard of anybody talking about it in the way that you have? and describing it, and you had said no. And I'm thinking, well, then how is it a universal thing if you really don't know? And see, that was my question to you at that point. And your answer was that you think it is a universal experience, that if people would just stop talking about it and do it, then they would know, and then the question would be answered.
Well, yeah, I think that anything that little bits and pieces that I've picked up, this very experience of the universe, the oneness and all that, is there in the Hindu literature, for example. I mean,
right.
The same exact thing. Now, here's the thing. Krishnamurti, to me, is the purest, as far as I know. Then again, I haven't read a whole bunch of people, but is the purest sort of orator of this, in that he came along and said, look, let's wipe all this nonsense away because we've built up too much around it. Doesn't matter who I am, doesn't matter, any of these sort of spiritual masters on an etheric plane that supposedly have indoctrinated me as the second coming. That's all bullshit. Forget about it. And I think the subtlety of his point was really missed. The subtlety of his point isn't that none of that was real. Because I think that's how everyone interpreted it, right? He just threw it off and said, tear down this church, none of this is real. What he's saying is, it doesn't matter to you if it's real or not what happened to me. All that matters to you is that you get this single point, truth is a pathless land. That the brain is projecting a self, and if this can somehow get through the barrier of you into your brain, then the brain will stop projecting you, it will stop thought, because it will realize that it cannot find what it seeks, because what it seeks is outside the barrier of this relativity. It's seeking this ultimate. And so once the brain gets that fully, then the seeker stops being projected. And then he doesn't say what happens next. He just says, do it, do it in quotes, because there's nothing you can do. Do it and find out. Figure this stuff out and find out. Don't worry about who I am. Don't worry about any of that shit. And truly, that is what we all are. And so then what happens next? And a lot of people come along and say, yeah, I've had, this big ultimate enlightenment experience, but you can't talk about it, you can't talk about it. And I think that what they mean isn't literally that you can't talk about it. It's that it needs to be experienced, that talking about it actually
right. There's no frame of reference. Yeah. Anytime you begin to articulate it, it limits it. What you're talking about doing, really, Jeremy, is smashing the vessel.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Again, I haven't read a whole lot to know, but it wouldn't surprise me anymore if I am saying one thing new.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you got to start over. You totally dropped out.
Oh.
Yeah.
It would have surprised me, like even a few weeks ago, to even learn that I was saying something new in this book, because I'm not even sure that I am, but I might be saying one new thing. Which is that this other level is something that we can live on and not just experience and come back and then integrate into our lives. I think it might be a new thing to say we can live on that level. We can live in that oneness as a non-local, entity with all of these various perspectives happening at once, one of which is you back in your body. That might be new. And the reason I think that might be new is because the more I learn about what's actually been made of this for thousands of years in, say, Hinduism, is the notion of, the body is bad. The physical world, the gross physical world, is, gross, is the thing that needs to be shunned, right? And the whole notion of the physical being a necessary part of all of this is actually recent, is actually not since the last maybe 100 years or so. Hello?
Hello?
The more I think about it, the more I think it wouldn't surprise me if I am saying one new thing in this book, which I hadn't really thought about before, because I thought there's nothing new to say, and so I'm just sort of reiterating in a language that, more people can understand nowadays. But maybe I am saying something new, which is that we can live on that level where the slit opens in the back and you jettison out and, experience the universe, all of these multiple perspectives, all at the same time, one of which is you back in your body. Can we live on that non-locality? Can we live in that perspective? This is my question, and I don't know that that's ever been asked, because the more I look into this, for thousands of years, for instance, the Hindus sort of went the way of the body is bad. The gross physical world is something that needs to be overcome. They set up this chakra system, or maybe they just recognize the chakra system that is set up. And the first three are the thing that you need to really transcend to become a better person, essentially. And even if you have ever seen any of those sort of like documentary things where you're looking at those guru guys with like gray dust on their faces and they're like, picking up stuff with their balls, like giant concrete rocks and stuff to go look at how I've conquered, pain in the body and all of that. I mean, it's still prevalent, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this thing of not transcending and including the body, but, what can we do to get rid of the body? And that really didn't really change until even like the last 100 years. So you would think that somebody would have this giant experience and come back and recognize the sort of fullness of it, but that doesn't seem to be what happens, And maybe something like that does unfold along a timeline. Maybe people can only hear so much at one point, another point, another point, another point. And maybe we're at the point where, even though we sort of made fun of, gee, Jer, you're a dude from Massachusetts. I don't see some schmuck from Massachusetts saying something new or doing something, offering something new, but maybe this is something new, which is that you can live there and that we must live there. Or I'm completely wrong about the fact that we can live there and the systems that are set up, which are basically, for instance, Kundalini Yoga, according to Joseph Campbell, has it that you break through the first facade, which is those first three chakras, right, which are basically the way we live every day: sex, fear, and our sense in history. Those are sort of the first three chakras, and then there are a bunch of others, and then you break through those, and you've reached the big epiphany. Well, then once you've reached the big epiphany, you circle back and you integrate it into your life, and you live normally. But I don't think that we do that.
Well, I
think that's
really,
a mistake. I'm saying that there's a further thing.
We're already there, though. The only thing you're injecting is a temporal element into it.
What's the temporal element?
A time-based element. If you take something that transcends time, that's outside of time, it's kind of moot. You don't need to put it into a time frame. That's kind of, in my view, that's kind of the perspective that we have to lose. That it is. I mean, it's already here. We're already there. It's just we have to realize it.
Yeah, but it's also, to have that giant experience is so discombobulating because all of these various perspectives at once, happening at once. Is it possible to live in that? And I guess, so the thing that would be trapped in time or temporal would be the body, while the mind would be oneness, would be non-local. It's the body is locality and
right.
The mind is non-local.
And it's all
can that be the state of the human mind? Can that be the very point of view that we have, not as an experience, but live on as a stage?
Consciously.
Yeah.
Consciously, yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is I'm not certain that question has been asked until now. I see no evidence of it having been asked until now, and maybe it couldn't have been because for thousands of years they were going the other way and saying, oh, the body is bad, and dealing with an issue that's a non-issue, No,
you're taking a really simple concept, and which is difficult to articulate and very difficult to grasp because you have to grab a bunch of different dimensions at one time and tie them all together into something that makes sense/nonsense. But it's nonetheless real. It's a real experience. And it's like giving instructions on something that there's no real instructions for. It just is. And that's a real challenge for you.
It's a challenge. I'm good. I guess I'm trying to tucker people out, like that's the only way I know how, like in the book is just like I keep getting feedback about, people are really enjoying it and really think it's brilliant or think I'm crazy or it's both or whatever. But I mean, all of the feedback has been positive.
It's not a fast read. It's a slow read.
This is the problem. It's a slow read, but I wish it were a fast read. I wish that people would rush through it and not take time to contemplate it. Just let it, just be overwhelmed by it and see if that does something, you know?
All right, I'll pick up the pace then.
What do you think about that? I mean, do you think that would work?
What, condense it down to like 30 pages?
No, to just like, to be so overwhelmed by what you're reading that you don't really stop to ponder it. You just, because really what I'm trying to do is get the brain to a point where the brain gives up and says, okay, I get it, I'm not going to get it. But really legitimately says it, not just like intellectually, but legitimately says, I get it. Mm-hmm. And in that moment stops projecting the reader. I don't know that that's possible. It's probably not, but
be a nice trick.
I think now that you've articulated that idea, you've killed it. So congratulations.
Well, I articulated it in the book, but then I set up the book in a way that if there is a chance of that working, then maybe it will.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've gotten that far, Lee.
He's got it covered. No, not yet. Not yet. And I'm as a slow reader, though, I tell you, I like to savor every word and ponder every meaning and every possible angle.
Right.
To the point where I don't understand anything at all.
Yeah, well, that's fine. And I just want to say, once again...
That's the way to read a book.
That's the way I read, frankly.
That's why we have audiobooks.
Yeah, well, soon Lee is working on the audio version of this, so how cool is that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
I'm very much looking forward to completing it and read the pearls while driving in the car.
How do you talk about this stuff and not end up in guru mode?
Never be seen again. Driving in a car.
How do you write about this stuff or speak about this stuff and not end up in guru mode? I mean, how do you not end up? Because the more I think about it, it's like even Krishnamurti, who said, "I'm not a teacher. I'm not a this. I'm not a that." Well, you're still a guy on a stage, and they're still the audience. So no matter how much you try to set it up as a dialogue of equals, you're the guy that they're listening to. So
that's the trap, isn't it? I mean,
that's the trap.
So I think the only thing you can do is keep repeating it, which is what he did, and I guess which is what I'm trying to do, which is just to say I'm not a guru, I'm not a school marm, I'm not setting myself up in a place of superiority. If it ends up that I'm saying something that you haven't heard or whatever, I mean, the point isn't that I'm teaching. The point is just learn how to listen, I guess. Learn how to listen in a way that you're not just taking it in so that you're learning something new, but that so that some part of you hears really what's being said underneath all of the bad articulation on my part.
People that get that though will understand that.
Oh, now you're cracking up.
They are, or
wait, hold on. You're cracked up.
No, what I was trying to say is that I think people kind of miss maybe that that we're really all the same stuff, or what you're trying to put forth is we're really all the same stuff, and they don't get that. They still believe in the borders, and they won't give up, and that's a part of what it's all about, is not giving up the borders and the boundaries that delineate us in this place. If you take everything and devolve it back to, take it out of the temporal area, then we all devolve back to the little mustard seed that used to be the universe before before the Big Bang banged big. Because of that separate, because that hold on to that, you can't help but.
Motherfucker. Hello?
You talking to me?
No, it's just started going out as soon as you said because of that.
Yeah, see?
Jeremy, I think what Lee's trying to say is...
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, do it.
3, 2, 1.
You'll get through.
I think what Lee's getting at here, Jeremy, is that if everyone is in the oneness mode, then that kind of negates a guru because you're all the same, right? So wouldn't that negate the guru?
Yes.
And that's proof that they don't get it.
Well, yeah, if they got it, they would be there. You're right.
So as a guru, you have to deal with them in love and light and lead them in a perfect path.
By the way,
in a loving way.
If people are wondering, Jeff had to finish Lee's answer because every time Lee tries to talk, Skype says no thanks.
Skype says no.
I don't know why that is.
When do we get our peace beats and love feathers?
Yeah. But I don't know. Some kid out there will get it. I'm sure there's some kid out there who's going to be like, I get it, la la la. And then
it's a simple concept that is so difficult to articulate because we have to release ourselves and we have to release the vessel that we're in.
Well, here's the other thing. I just want to put this in perspective too, which is,
please do.
You look at all of these, like we were watching earlier today. My new roomies and I, Microcosmos, I think it is, a documentary on bugs, which is these high def cameras. Zoomed in tight on the world of insects. And you look at all of these just sort of brilliant things, like a bee is getting what it's getting out of a flower while it's dipping its head into the flower, the stems of it are coming down and touching the bee's back and pollinating the bee's back so that the bee can go pollinate other flowers with it, that sort of thing. You look at that sort of interconnectivity and you go, wow, that's amazing. That's logic. That's somebody must have created that. There must be a creator of that. Because how can you have all of these natural systems like this, right? How can you have a universe that works by mathematical laws, all of that sort of stuff? So therefore there must be a creator. Well, I think the thing that people are missing is that no. There's not a creator of that. Those things are logical, or those things are systems, because those are it. That is God. Again, that gets back to the isness, to the oneness or whatever. All of those things are expressions of oneness broken up into physicality, into manifestations, and into systems, because there's no choice. It's just once you have this consciousness, period, once you have consciousness, it's got to be doing something. Well, what's it doing? It's expressing everything. It's essentially expressing itself as an it. And how you do that is you create objects and therefore space and time. I mean, this is just all what happens.
If it wasn't separate, then it would not be able to realize itself.
Well, it doesn't have a choice. I mean, again, that's another motivation. It's like that may even be true, but it's beside the point. It's like there's no choice. This is just what is. This is just. And you can experience this. That you can have the experience of this from that point of view, because you are a part of all that just is, and you're the part that can have the experience. And I would argue more than that, if we really got there. But in any event, at least for now, an experience of the point of view of that self-awareness.
And that point of view and self-awareness would be further enhanced if I had a PhD from MIT then, correct?
Yes, it would. Absolutely.
Somewhere there's a small child thrashing about on the floor saying, I am the floor, I am the ceiling, I am the fish tank.
And they would be correct.
They would be correct, and they'd be wrong at the same time. They're correct, but at the same time, are they experiencing it or are they just saying it? Because this is what we do for thousands of years, right? Is just say that we're onto it so that we never get onto it. And this again gets back to why it sounds like I'm abrasive on the forum, because there's no way to say that nicely. And there's no way, and then other people are, read that and they go, well, how can you see what's in someone else's subconscious? Well, how can you say what motivates a person? Well, it's because we're not talking about the personal. We're talking about the transpersonal. We're talking about the consciousness of humanity. And in that, I understand greatly, which anyone can, if they just see this one simple thing, if they just walk through this one simple store, which is to put a gun to your head. Metaphorically speaking.
If we can wrap the show with this single thought, and this is what I want everyone to think about for next time.
Oh God.
Spoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Neo. Thank you, young Neo.
Jeremy, I really enjoyed that.
Oh, well, thank you. So it didn't just see, I can't tell because I'm just saying words, and so I can't tell if it's just going to sound like more, huh? Or if it is actually making sense.
Well,
and it's not helping that every time you open your mouth, you cut out.
Yeah, right.
As is happening.
Like them.
For instance, right now.
I've just given up, so.
That's the best
so
thing.
It's.
There's a lesson here. Well, I guess we know that we have a time limit on this show, which is after midnight, it stops working.
Right.
Well, Jeremy, guess what? We're out of time.
Really? That's how you're wrapping it up? Wait,
That's right,
let's go back to where Lee tells me how brilliant I am again. Go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I like that part where your head went all the way around, too.
Awesome,
and
thank you.
Do I have time for me to say that this is the first time I've been on the radio?
You have something you want to plug? Let's get on with it.
Lee has nothing to plug.
I have nothing to plug.
Ladies and gentlemen, we had a brilliant discussion for you tonight, but that got sidetracked by technical issues. So instead, you've got we're gonna erase all of this and put on Jeff and the Jughead Band.
The soft candlelight music.
All right. Well, let's hope that I can edit this into something that sounds what's the word? Sane.
If not cohesive.
Let's hope not. Jeff, are you playing us out?
How? Hit it!
Well, all right, Paratopia.
That's enough of that.
Very good. All right, let's get the hell out of here. Paratopia, I'm sure I'll edit this so that it sounds 45% more coherent than we think it will. But the fact is we're having a lot of technical difficulties every time we try to talk about this issue. So make of that what you will. Jeff, take us out. Thanks, Jeff. Jeff?
Lee Townsend, everyone. Thank you. Hello. Yes. Hi.
By the way, Lee we were also hoping Lee would be able to give us an update on the Dreamland Festival, the Whitley Strieber Dreamland Festival, but I guess you needed, permission to speak about that, and we didn't get it yet, or something?
Well, no, I wouldn't call it permission so much as maybe just a blessing, and I'm probably going to need a few days to decipher my notes that I took in the dark.
Did you sign a release? That's all I need to know.
I don't remember.
Good. Lee will be back soon.
I think I did. Yeah.
Very good. All right, gents. So we will call it quits for now, and if this is really incoherent, then we'll just turn it into a midweek show where we babble at you some more, and you still don't get what the fuck I'm saying. No? Hello?
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 Now I hear you.
Hi.
Jeff, Lee, it's been wonderful.
So the Jer.
No, Jeff, no.
Oh, what?
No, we're done. It's way too late for that.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Oh, mercy.
This is Phil Imbroglios, paranormal investigator and scientist sometimes. You're listening to Jeff and Jeremy on Paratopia.
So the Jeff.
So the Jer.
See, that's where you put the spot. So the Jeff, so the Jer.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, good. How did I go? Me, eh?
You do go on.
Yeah. Yes. I guess for the sake of least confusion, we should say that we're now taping this after chat on a Thursday night. So the day after Lee was with us.
Right.
So we're now time traveling back to the future. Marty!
Oh, boy.
We gotta go back! No, nothing.
Sorry.
I'm not editing that.
Okay.
You'll just have to deal with that. In fact, I'm going to put it on my resume.
Great. Okay, so Flo, I hope I hope Jeremy did explain that correctly, and I hope that explains it a little bit better from his perspective. Because I'll be honest with you, I originally read the exchange between you and Flo, and I kind of saw, her point about that until you further explained it to me. In I don't know, there's a lot of subtleties in there that are demeanor, and there's some that is not real self-evident. And so I think above anything else, it's miscommunication to a certain degree, but on a certain, on another level, I think you're right in that I guess your walking analogy, I guess, is what worked the best for me. That's what kind of clicked it over in my head that made sense as far as that whole interaction went. So, Flo, hope that explains it to you. And I think I don't think Jeremy met any malice in your discussion. So.
Or did I? No.
You're awful.
No. And I keep going over in my head, is there another way to put it? And it's like, yeah, you can put it 6 ways from Sunday, but it's really, it is, as Lee said, it's a simple concept that's really, really hard to get. It's hard to wrap your mind around because it's antithetical to how we think.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that? But here I am reminded of a quote from Joseph Campbell. Did I say this already on the show, or did I just write this on the board? He was quoting, I think, a poet. Of course, all this eludes me now, but basically the quote was something like, if Americans or Westerners, I don't remember what he said. I think he said Americans. If Americans had the choice between going to heaven and hearing a lecture about heaven, they'd pick the lecture.
Yeah, you said that during the show, yeah.
I did, yeah. And what's interesting is he was talking about the throat chakra, or the throat energy center, that the Hindu correlate of that is, of all the chakras, like, this is the one that has a dual sort of purpose. If you really get it intellectually but don't get it, then you speak it. Then it becomes just knowledge. You become the lecturer. If you pass go and collect $200, then you move on into sort of the oneness perspective, and then you are it. So even that sort of dynamic between being it and just talking about it, knowing about it, is represented there.
Can I ask a question here at this point? I mean,
Sure.
I think the first time I heard the word chakra, I think, was way back when Out on a Limb was on television. Shirley MacLaine's thing. I think that's when I first heard that term. I could be wrong, but I think that's when I first heard that. I haven't understood that pretty much since then. So my question is, my question is, I mean, to be perfectly frank with you, I just lump that in with every new age.
I do too.
As everything else.
I fucking hate that I even say that word.
Well, now here's the thing. Here's the question I have to ask. Number one, if you don't know, that's fine. But has science at all tried to validate or study that whole encompassing chakra? I
don't know, but I've got to think so, because they've certainly studied transcendental meditators and Buddhist monks, brain waves and stuff like that. So I've got to think that they've tried, but I don't know enough about it to know. Okay.
So you also wouldn't know if they found any kind of physical evidence of any of that. I would think not. Again, I would think not, or would be something that everyone knows.
Well, no, because it's supposed to be this ethereal. It's like the aura. Okay. It's like this ethereal thing with biological correlates to organs in the body.
Okay. So it exists in spirit only, if we
or
can put it
something only. Yeah, in something less tangible than the body that we all know and love.
Okay. Understand. All right.
But again, I got to stress, I mean, I experience this. I experience this every day, these chakras, and I can't fully tell you what they do other than to say, when I read about them, what I read makes complete sense to me.
Okay. Do you think that's what you're talking about when you say sometimes, like you've said, when you stayed here in your room here, that you've shut your eyes and it's like a light came on above your eyebrows or something like that, and you could see it with your eyes shut. You could see this light. Do you think that's what that is?
No.
You don't?
No.
Oh, well, that's a curious thing. What do you think that is?
The light? I don't know. I don't know what that's a product of. I mean, it might be the product of something open, third eye or, some sort of chakra, whatever. But no, I mean, I guess I sort of tend to look at the chakras as these energy centers, and this, I guess I'm calling it Kundalini now. Kundalini energy is like a river of energy, and those are little pools. And so the energy pools there and then also serves a function in those pools. I just can't tell you what the function is.
Where did Kundalini come from? Where was that first spoken of?
Oh, I think it's Sanskrit, isn't it? Somebody out there.
You're asking the wrong dude. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I'm pretty sure it is Sanskrit. I think it was first spoken about by the Hindus and then Buddha.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, the thing that Joseph Campbell was talking about was Kundalini Yoga, which he was saying was the most pure, sort of primordial, I guess, honest system of yoga, if we can call it that.
All right.
Which is why he bothered to describe it. And so
I take
that
it
goes back.
Yeah, and this is supposed to be a dormant thing in most people, correct?
It lies, it's the serpent energy. It lies coiled at the spine, and then it rises with your awareness, right? And so, and when it rises, it pulls in those chakras. Like, that's how you tell what level you're on, right? Whatever chakra is opened by this Kundalini energy. At least that's what I gathered from what he was saying. And so he was saying, like, the first three chakras, which are down by your ass. Okay. like the first one. Deal with like animal, like he said, if you've got the one chakra open, you're basically a creepy person. You're one of those like socially distorted creepy people. If you've got the second chakra open, you're probably Freudian. You think everything's related to sex issues. If you've got the third chakra open, then you see a greater sense of history, and so you're probably like that politician who sees everything in terms of how the world history and the tide of events and things like that.
Okay.
And then you break so those are three pieces of a level, and then you break through that into more of a transpersonal, you sort of transcend that, which and those three are represented in animals. So you're basically, which is where I guess the Hindus sort of decided, well, you've got to break through the gross physical body, that's the least important aspect of us because it's the most animal, and we've got to get away from that. Okay. So you get away from that, and he said Freud would be sort of, not Freud, I'm sorry, Carl Jung would probably be an example of somebody who lived in the fourth tier, or the fourth chakra open. I would say that Tiokasin, talks about the Lakota living from the heart, right? Well, the heart is a chakra, so let's place him there. So you get up to the big one, and you break through that the same way you broke through the first three, which is to transcend the sense of self, to kill the self and become the next thing. Okay.
Well, something that Flo had mentioned to me in her email was that awakening this Kundalini, whatever, if you want to call it a realization or an energy form or whatever, can for some people be dangerous. And let me just put this out there because I really have to wonder about this. When I got out of college, I worked at a display company. We built signs and big trade show displays and stuff like that. And I worked with a guy. He had a girlfriend. She's very nice, very normal. I mean, to me, a completely grounded, average human being. I don't think particularly spiritual. And he came in one day, and he said that he had to take her to the doctor or a psychologist, and they, if I remember correctly, they ended up taking her to a psychiatric hospital. And I said, "My God, what the hell happened?" And he said that, and I'm doing this from memory, and I just remembered this probably 3 days ago, so I may not have all this exactly right, but the gist of it is solid. He said something like she woke up in the middle of the night screaming. She had been awake, laying in bed, and was trying to go back to sleep, but wasn't successful. But she woke him up screaming and running around like a nut and saying, "I'm everything. I'm everyone. It's too much. It's too much." And I said, what do you think that means? He goes, well, after she got calmed down, she said that she just felt unbelievably small and inexplicably huge at the same time, and that she realized she was only one singular person, but felt everyone else. And felt the enormity of, I'm guessing, he said the enormity of everyone in the world and herself being so small, but yet recognizing everyone in the world, every other being and everything else. He said it was just like her world completely imploded on top of her. And that popped in my head the other day, and I said, Jesus, I wonder if actually what she did was to somehow inadvertently, maybe in a hypnagogic state, or maybe she had been a meditator, I don't know, but she was quite the mess, he said. And I have to wonder if she didn't awaken something or have some kind of epiphany that made her a little off. I mean, does that smack of anything to you? I mean,
but what did she do with it? I mean, what happened next? Like, how many years was she in the hospital, and what became of her?
I don't even think there was years. I think it was a matter of a couple of days, and she was back out. And I don't remember how any of that ended, because I don't know if their relationship continued or whether I ever saw her again. So I don't really know.
I think it's important, just like with the alien stuff, to note that, is it possible that there's a horror story angle? Yeah, but then what happened next?
Right.
I mean, isn't that what we're going through with all this stuff?
Yeah.
It's like, is it demons? Well, no, it's not demons. So what is it?
Right.
Am I crazy? What did I just experience? How did she then
assimilate it?
Yeah, assimilate that into her life. I guess what I would say is that to have it sprung upon you like that out of nowhere, and to not be looking for it, that would be scary and disconcerting and all of that.
But can that happen, in your opinion?
Yeah.
Yes?
Uh-huh.
What would precipitate that? I mean, how would that happen?
I don't know.
So
I don't know what she was doing. I mean, I don't know. Did she have a moment of just complete blankness and it overtook her? Did something trigger it that, I don't know. I have no idea.
I mean, I have to again go back to my own experience of seeing all these people's faces flashing on the headboard and feeling like I'm receding backwards. I mean, there was no reason for that. I wasn't doing anything. I think that was the night where we had the conversation about, all of this stuff, and for the first time, it kind of clicked a little bit more than usual with me. But other than that, that was the only thing that really was out of place. And for that to happen right in the middle of the night, I mean, literally, I woke up and it's going on, and I'm waking up.
Uh-huh.
And I'm receding, and then there's music playing over to my right, and I'm like, wow, that sounds like a really good song. I should write this down. And I'm trying to motivate myself to pick my face up and grab the pencil beside the bed and start writing these lyrics down that I'm hearing. And as I'm concentrating on that activity, it's pulling me backwards again, and I feel like I'm literally receding out of my body. But I'm receding into this blackness.
And I imagine if you weren't in control of being able to come out of that, if you weren't expecting that or something, or couldn't get your bearings, that would be really frightening.
Well, I think it was frightening. I mean, it was to a point where it happened so many times, it was like I was being placated with music for something else to do whatever it was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's the impression that I got. Whether that's actually what it was all about, I don't know. But I will say that it happened 3 or 4 more times, or a couple more at least. And at one point I said, okay, the next time I feel it happening, I'm just going to go with it. And when I did, I mean, I really receded. I mean, I really felt myself like any minute I could bust out of this thing and fly away. The thing is, and what freaked me out, was that there was all of a sudden a very definitive in my right ear when that happened. It was like an underwater, but with a lot of air. Right before I got really far back into this blackness, I heard this. It was almost like my, is it the cochlea is the bone in your ear? It was like that bone was fighting, or like something was ripping. And then I go, of course, I kind of I look at that and I kind of examine it. And I go, I wonder if that's what McKenna talks about with a DMT experience, where you feel this, or you hear this ripping of cellophane, this breaking through of something. And I wonder if that wasn't it. But I don't know how I would have snapped. I mean, I fought and clawed to get down, or to open my eyes and push myself up on the bed to make it stop. That was the only way you could really stop it, was to fight to move, I guess, is the best way to do it. If you fought hard enough to move, you could get out of it.
Well, I don't know if DMT stuff is the same thing. You know?
I don't know either. I mean, it's odd that it would be kind of the similar sound or a similar type of audible thing, and that just made me question that a little bit too.
No, I mean, I don't know that it's the same thing as Kundalini or whatever.
Well,
I mean, I tend to think that that's something that this energy utilizes, or that you can utilize it. Look, I think part of the problem with this is that when you're not of the oneness mind, which we aren't, that this looks like, again, this gets, I try to keep this as basic as possible. Let's go back to first person, second person, third person, right? So third person is the world, events in the world control you. Destiny. You've got to sacrifice something to the volcano to appease the gods. That's a third person relationship to existence. A second person is actual relationship, is being able to identify yourself with another person, putting yourself in their shoes, being able to communicate with them, seeing Jesus, who is the man God now. He's just like you and me. Mm. And then first person is the identity as that. So if you're in one of the first two modes, then that's how you're going to experience this. Huh. And so it's going to look like something is happening to you. Somebody is doing something to you.
Right.
Or in the event of, like, you had that sort of God experience, right, in your car. And what I would say about that is that is a second person identity experience of this. Mm-hmm. And it's not that, to say that doesn't belittle it. It just means that don't get stuck there. Don't get stuck there and think that means that there is a God watching out for you and all of that. That is one, that's how this manifests for you to be able to perceive it from the perspective you have. But there's a perspective that transcends that, which is, the oneness thing. And once you hit that, then you're no longer are the forces of the universe conspiring with or against you. No longer are you merely living in relationship with the people and the objects and animals and so forth around you. Now you are that. You are all of that in one gulp. Mm.
Well, your thoughts on this must be permeating my thought process when you talk about that. I don't know, that God winking at you experience in the car that day, because when you said that, I immediately said to myself, well, that means that was not an external force smiling at me or blissing me out or whatever that was. That was me. And your answer, and then all of a sudden I hear your voice say, well, no, there is no you. It's all you. It's everything. It's all, there is no, forget that you stuff. Forget that external thing. It's all one.
Yeah, you are that smiling God.
You are
more than you are you being smiled at. I mean, that's the weird thing. Now, here's where...
See, that I can't conceive based upon that experience. I mean...
Right.
Well, I wouldn't be able to. I mean, naturally, I wouldn't be able to.
Well, right, but then see, here's the trick to all. Here's where it gets tricky. It's like, and here's where I have failed, I think, in the past in explaining this. Although I don't in the book, because I was very careful to figure all this shit out before I wrote it. Is that to say that you are that? Like, this is what the New Age people have been doing wrongly for so many years. Is to say, well, I'm already that, so I'm God. It's the Shirley MacLaine self-centered thing. Mistaking the ego self for this. And the way you clear that up is to say, no, you're the projection of
Hello.
What just happened?
Skype quit unexpectedly. My iPod is also ringing. Hear that?
Yeah, that's really fucked up. It just started ringing and nothing hung up. Nothing hung up because the call recorder would have hung up.
Hello? Hello, check. My iPod was ringing.
What does that mean? Why was your iPod ringing?
I don't know. But it was ringing with Skype.
Well, there's your confirmation.
Okay.
That either I'm completely full of shit or what I say is the truth. One of the two, you choose.
Okay.
That's really weird because Skype quit, apparently, because it just started ringing. But like I said, the call recorder goes off. And it makes that hang-up noise, when it goes off. So you didn't hang up, but you did.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Huh. All right, Paratopia.
I think we'll leave it there.
I think that's enough for now.
99. Sleep tight.
And
I'm glad that this is not my room.
Disturbingly enough, we started having problems last night when we started getting too deep into this, so...
Yeah.
Make of that what you will. You know what I make something out of? The fact that Phil Imbrogno emailed me after we did the show. I mean, what are the odds of that timing? The dude emailed me in a week and a half or so, a week, somewhere in there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Weird.
Weird synchronicities abound.
Da-da-na-na. All right, so enough spiritual psychobabble for now. I hope something in there was useful. If not, we'll keep going at it, I guess, back and forth on the threads.
Next week, back to the paranormal at hand.
Right. Good night, Jeff.
Good night, Jer.
Good night, Paratopia.
Bye-bye.